I want to start with a moment. Years ago, I sat in my car in the parking lot of a grocery store, hands gripping the steering wheel, staring blankly ahead. I wasn't crying, not yet, but I could feel that familiar storm rising in my chest. You know the kind, when you've just left a conversation that stole something from you, not your wallet, not your time, something deeper, your peace, your dignity, maybe even a piece of your identity. The person I had just spoken to was someone close, someone I kept giving the benefit of the doubt to. But every interaction with them felt like drinking water from a glass laced with poison. And every time I'd tell myself, just be the bigger person, let it go. That day, sitting alone in the car, I realized something. Being smart isn't about tolerating toxicity. It's about learning how to treat it without letting it rewrite your worth. Let's talk about that. Before we begin, I'd love to invite you to take a deep breath, sit with me, and if this message speaks to your heart, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. It helps us keep these human, healing conversations alive in a world that needs more truth and less noise. It always starts small, doesn't it? A sarcastic comment wrapped in a smile, a jab disguised as a joke, an eye roll you pretend not to see, and you tell yourself it's not that big a deal. You try to brush it off. You think, maybe they're just having a bad day. Maybe I'm overreacting. You replay the moment in your head, trying to edit it until it hurts less. But deep down, something within you whispers, this is not how love should feel. See, the truth is, people who are emotionally intelligent, people who are wise with their hearts, don't ignore those whispers anymore. People who are emotionally intelligent, people who are wise with their hearts don't ignore those whispers anymore. They've learned to trust their inner warning system. That feeling in your gut that says, this isn't right, this is costing me too much, this is eroding who I am, that's your truth speaking. And smart people, they've learned to listen. Not because they're perfect, not because they've never been fooled, but because they've been there. They've stayed too long in relationships where their worth was constantly negotiated. They've poured themselves out to people who only knew how to take. They've tried to fix what was never theirs to repair. And they've walked away from those experiences, not bitter, but awake. That's the thing about heart-marked people. They don't rewrite reality to protect someone else's behavior. They stop dressing up dysfunction in softer words. They don't call someone difficult when what they really are is disrespectful. They don't label emotional cruelty as tough love. And they've stopped trying to be emotional detectives, constantly searching for clues to make sense of someone else's chaos. Because what they've come to know, not just intellectually, but in their bones, is that clarity is kindness. To yourself, to others. It's kind to name things truthfully. It's kind to admit when someone's presence feels more like a weight than a gift. It's kind to stop pretending that pain is just part of the package. And it's not that smart people don't have hope. They do. But their hope is grounded in truth, not fantasy. They don't hope someone might be loving someday. They look at how someone shows up right now. Not the version they dream of, the version that is. And if that version consistently makes them feel small, unsafe, drained, or erased, they choose to stop lying to themselves. That's not cruelty. That's self-respect. That's emotional wisdom. And sometimes, the most courageous thing a smart person ever does is sit alone in the quiet of that knowing and say, this hurts, and it's still the truth. And I'm done pretending it's not. They see what's real. Not because they want to judge, but because they're done being confused on purpose. They don't need loud drama to know something's toxic. Sometimes they just feel it in the way their spirit dims when that person enters the room, and that's enough. That's the beginning of emotional clarity. And clarity, that's how healing begins. When someone wounds you with their words, when they dismiss your boundaries like they were never spoken, when they twist your intentions and turn your tenderness into a weapon. Every cell in your body wants to react. You want to defend yourself. You want to yell back. You want to expose them, explain yourself, or maybe even shame them into finally seeing the damage they're causing. That urge is human, that fire is human, and you are allowed to feel it. But here's what the emotionally intelligent eventually learn. Sometimes the smartest response isn't to match the fire. It's to find the nearest fire exit. Because fighting toxicity with more toxicity doesn't cleanse you, it entangles you. It turns you into someone you're not, just to prove something to someone who will never see it. Smart people know that not every accusation needs an answer. Not every insult needs a comeback. Not every confrontation deserves your energy. They learn this not from some lofty spiritual idea, but through pain. They've been scorched before. They've tried to out-argue the manipulator. They've tried to be louder than the person who refused to listen. And the more you scorch, the more tired, the more burned, the more uncertain, the more defensive, the more scarred you'll be. Not everyone responds to the same way. They learn this not from some lofty spiritual idea, but through pain. They've learned how to make better decisions. Not everyone responds to the same words, but through pain, they've exhausted themselves explaining their worth to someone committed to misunderstanding them. And eventually, not all at once, but gradually and with deep heartbreak, they understand. Peace is not something you find in the battlefield of someone else's dysfunction. Peace is something you protect by walking away from the war entirely. It's not about being passive. It's about being powerful in a different way. It's the quiet power of no longer reacting to every provocation. It's the gentle courage of choosing silence where once you'd have shouted. It's the deep wisdom of saying, I no longer need to win this. I just need to free myself from it. Smart people aren't unbothered. They're just unwilling to let their nervous system live in a permanent state of defense. They're not above anger, but they've stopped letting it be their guide. They've learned that their energy is a currency, and they're done spending it on battles that lead nowhere. And this is where something truly beautiful happens. Because when you stop feeding the fire, you start building fire exits. And fire exits are more than just walking away. They're what you build inside yourself to get free. A fire exit can be a boundary you hold even when it disappoints someone. It can be a decision to block a number and delete the thread without offering a 5-paragraph goodbye. It can be saying to yourself, I know what I experienced, even if they rewrite the story. It can be choosing not to show up to every argument you're invited to. And each of those moments, though they may feel small, are actually sacred acts of self-protection. Because here's what no one tells you. It takes strength to disengage. It takes discipline to stay grounded when someone tries to pull you into their chaos. It takes love, real fierce love, to say, I will not lose myself in order to be heard by someone who never listened to begin with. And that's the difference. Smart people don't need to burn bridges. They just stop walking across ones that always lead to the same pain. Because they know now, every time you walk into that fire, trying to convince someone to care, you lose another piece of yourself. And they've finally decided that's a price they're no longer willing to pay. We grow up being told that kindness is always the answer, that we should give people the benefit of the doubt, that understanding someone's pain is the highest form of love. And there is truth in that. Empathy is powerful. Empathy is healing. But only when it's anchored in boundaries. See? Smart people, those who have walked through the fires of being used, dismissed, guilt-tripped, or emotionally manipulated, eventually realize that empathy without limits becomes a form of self-abandonment. You can be the most loving, forgiving, open-hearted person and still be crushed under the weight of someone who uses your compassion as a loophole. So, smart people, people who have started waking up to their own worth, they learn the radical art of protecting themselves with empathy, not in spite of it. They begin to understand this deep, often painful truth. You can feel sorry for someone's suffering and still not allow them access to your life. You can see someone's brokenness and still refuse to let their broken pieces cut you. You can say, I know they're struggling, and also say, but that doesn't mean I have to be their landing pad. Smart people learn to sit in that tension, where love doesn't mean self-sacrifice and compassion doesn't require self-erasure. It's not easy. It goes against everything you may have been taught. You might hear voices in your head that whisper, but they need you. You're being cold. You're giving up. But listen, being available to someone's pain doesn't mean you have to become a container for their poison. Empathy says, I see your humanity. Boundaries say, I see mine too. And smart people have wrestled with this balance. They've stayed up late, thinking about what they could have said differently. They've questioned themselves after cutting ties. They've felt guilt, shame, and even fear. Because choosing yourself after years of prioritizing someone else's emotional chaos can feel like betrayal. But eventually they realize it's not betrayal, it's return. A return to sanity, a return to peace, a return to the truth of who you are when you're not walking on eggshells. And this doesn't mean they stop loving people. It means they love smarter. They no longer believe that rescuing someone from their patterns is the same as loving them. They no longer think that absorbing someone's pain will save them. They stop showing up as the emotional janitor, cleaning up the mess that someone else keeps making over and over again. And maybe the most courageous thing they do is this. They hold space in their hearts for both compassion and distance. They can say, I want you to heal, but I can't do that work for you. I believe in your goodness, but I won't let your behavior keep harming me. I love you, but I love me too. And I've finally stopped putting one over the other. This is what emotional maturity looks like. Not a lack of empathy, but empathy that no longer comes at your own expense. It's the kind of love that honors everyone involved, including yourself. And that, my friend, is a form of healing most people never even get to. But if you're here, if you're listening, if you're even thinking about this, you're already halfway there. One of the hardest things smart people ever have to do is let go without the apology they deserve, without the explanation that would make everything make sense, without the closure that would tie the pain up in a neat little box and say, see, that's why it happened. But toxic people rarely give you that. They rarely say, you're right, I hurt you. They rarely own the damage they caused because accountability threatens the very power they've worked so hard to hold over you. And so smart people who are beginning to live with their eyes open and their hearts intact, they learn to do the impossible. They let go anyway. They stop chasing after closure like it's something the other person can grant them. Because here's the truth no one tells you. Closure doesn't come from them. It comes from you. It comes when you stop rereading the messages, trying to find the exact moment. It all turned. It comes when you stop rehearsing what you would say to them if you had just one more conversation. It comes when you stop waiting for someone else to validate your pain before you allow yourself to begin healing. Smart people learn that some endings will never feel fair. Some relationships won't wrap up with clarity. Sometimes the person who hurt you will keep living like nothing happened. They might even rewrite the story, painting themselves as a victim and you as the one who overreacted. And you know what? Smart people stop needing to correct the narrative. Because healing becomes more important than being understood. Peace becomes more valuable than being proven right. Freedom becomes more sacred than winning the argument. Letting go without closure is not weak. It is holy work. It is brave, gut-wrenching, soul-growing work. It's the moment when you choose to stop digging through the ashes of what burned you, hoping to find something that will make it all feel worth it. It's the quiet decision to say, I may never understand why they did what they did, but I'm done letting that question live rent-free in my heart. It's not giving up. It's giving it back. Giving back the blame that was never yours. Giving back the silence they use to control you. Giving back the story you've been carrying like a stone in your chest. Smart people grieve what could have been. They cry for the parts of themselves that shrank, bent, or broke in the process. But they don't stay stuck in the pain loop forever. At some point, they rise. Not because the wound no longer hurts, but because they're tired of letting it define them. They begin to write a new story, one where the chapter ends not with revenge or righteousness, but with peace. A quiet, internal peace that says, I don't need them to fix what they broke. I've learned how to rebuild myself. I don't need a final conversation. I've had enough with myself to know the truth. I may never get their closure, but I have mine, and it looks like moving forward. And in that forward motion, something truly sacred unfolds, not just distance, but dignity, not just silence, but self-respect. Because the real closure isn't in what they say, it's in who you become after you stop needing it. There comes a point when you stop asking, why did they treat me like that? And start asking, why did I stay? Not in a self-blaming way, not from shame, but from a sacred kind of curiosity. The kind that says, what in me was taught to tolerate pain as proof of love? Smart people, emotionally wise people, they don't just walk away from toxic people. They walk toward themselves. And in that journey, that brave, quiet, radical return to self, they do something that no one else can do for them. They learn to unlearn. They unlearn the conditioning that made them believe peace was selfish. They unlearn the belief that love must always hurt. They unlearn the toxic loyalty that told them leaving was weakness, that boundaries were betrayal, that staying silent made them virtuous. They begin to see how they were shaped, maybe by a parent who never apologized or a partner who only valued them when they were compliant. They start to notice how their patterns of over-explaining, over-giving, or over-functioning weren't flaws, they were survival strategies. But now they are reclaiming their power. And with that reclamation comes a stunning kind of clarity. I don't have to earn my worth through endurance anymore. That's the shift, that's the turning point. That's when everything begins to change. Because smart people eventually stop centering toxic people in their stories. They stop trying to dissect the narcissist. They stop trying to decode the manipulator. They stop wasting years in the maze of someone else's emotional immaturity. Instead, they begin to tell the truth about themselves. They say, I've always been loving, but now I'm loving with boundaries. I still care deeply, but I no longer carry other people's chaos. I used to seek validation. Now I offer it to myself. And the more they speak these truths, the more they soften, not into weakness, but into freedom. They begin to fill the space that was once taken up by drama, confusion, and emotional fatigue with things that actually nourish them. Silence, stability, friendships where they don't have to prove their value, work that reflects their real voice, solitude that doesn't feel lonely, but liberating. Smart people begin to glow in ways that can't be faked, because peace, when it's real, radiates. And here's the beautiful irony. The more they heal, the more compassion they actually have for others, even for those who once hurt them. But it's not the kind of compassion that reopens the door. It's the kind that smiles and says, I wish you well from a distance. That distance, that's not punishment. That's protection. That's self-honoring. That's healing with boundaries intact. And so if you've been hurt by someone who couldn't love you in the way you needed, if you spent too long trying to fix what was never yours to fix, if you're tired of repeating the same emotional cycles with different names and faces, let this be the beginning, not of more trying, but of more truth, not of more performing. Let's talk about 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 more, but of more presence, not of more chasing, but of coming home to yourself. You deserve love that doesn't ask you to abandon yourself. You deserve peace that doesn't require your silence. You deserve a life that feels like a soft place to land. Even when it's just you, on your own, saying to yourself, this is who I am, this is what I need, and that is enough. Because the smartest thing you'll ever do in the face of toxicity is walk away from what harms you and walk boldly into the life that heals you. Not for revenge, not for applause, but for your own becoming. And that is where your power, your real, unshakable, unstoppable power begins. So if you're here today, maybe in your car like I was, or lying in bed replaying one more hurtful conversation, I want you to hear me. You don't have to fight for space in the heart of someone who keeps shrinking yours. You don't have to keep carrying pain just because you carried it for so long. You don't have to stay in places that dim your light just to keep others from feeling uncomfortable. Smart people treat toxic people not with cruelty, but with clarity, with courage, with a fierce kind of self-love that says, I deserve better, I choose better, and I walk away not because I hate you, but because I finally love me. So go softly, but go bravely. You are not too much. You are not too sensitive. You are simply no longer available for less than what love is meant to be. And that's where your healing begins.